The alien girl had never seen anything like it before. She came from a world where heat was dangerous, where even a small rise in temperature could make her people weak. Her kind always lived in cool caves, dark valleys, and cold winds. But now, as she followed the humans in secret, she saw them walking into a small wooden house with strange smiles on their faces. Curiosity pushed her closer. Her name was Lyra, and she had studied humans from a distance for many days. She thought they were strange creatures, too fragile, too careless, and too full of energy. But nothing prepared her for what she was about to see. The wooden house had a door that let out a wave of hot air. It made her eyes burn and her skin tighten instantly. She gasped, almost stepping back. Yet, the humans walked in happily, like they were going to a celebration. Inside, the place was filled with thick steam. She saw humans sitting on wooden benches, their bodies dripping with sweat. Some were even laughing, their faces red but still calm. To her, it looked like torture. Yet they called it joy, Lyra whispered. To herself, this cannot be real. She pressed her hand to the wall, feeling the heat seep through the wood. Her instincts screamed to run, but her mind demanded to stay. She had to know why, against her better judgment. She pushed the door open. The steam swallowed her instantly, blinding her eyes, choking her lungs. She stumbled inside, her body trembling. Every part of her screamed. In pain, the humans turned their heads when they saw her. One of them, a tall man with calm eyes, stood up quickly. He looked surprised but not angry. He moved toward her as she struggled to breathe. Lyra collapsed to her knees, her vision spinning. The man caught her just before she fell completely. "Hey, are you okay?" His voice sounded soft, almost kind. She tried to speak but only coughed, her chest burning like fire. He helped her out of the sauna, guiding her to a bench outside. Cool air rushed over her face, and she gasped like someone who had just escaped death. Her skin was damp, her hair sticking to her forehead. She shivered even though the night air was warm. The man sat beside her, offering a bottle of water. "You shouldn't go in there if you're not used to it," he said gently. Lyra looked at him with wide eyes, shocked that he didn't seem harmed at all. His body was hot, steaming, but he smiled as if nothing had happened. How can you survive that?" she whispered, her voice shaking. The man tilted his head a little, confused. "Survive? That's a sauna. It's supposed to make us feel better," he explained. She almost laughed, but it came out as a weak breath. For her people, heat was death, but for humans, it was healing. She could not understand how two species could be so opposite, yet she felt something inside her shift. Curiosity was now turning into fascination. The man extended his hand. "My name's Daniel. What's yours?" Lyra hesitated. Her people always warned her never to reveal her name to outsiders, but something in his eyes told her he was safe. "Lyra," she whispered. Her voice carried both fear and wonder. Daniel smiled warmly, repeating her name slowly. "Lyra. Nice to meet you, though you almost fainted on our first meeting." For a moment she forgot the danger. She found herself staring at him, not with fear, but with interest. This human was different. He had saved her, not questioned her, not feared her, but inside she knew the truth. If her people discovered she had entered such a deadly place and met a human, she would be punished. Still, the mystery was too strong. Why did humans love the very thing her kind feared most? She decided she needed answers, even if it meant risking everything. Her heart pounded as she whispered to herself, "This is only the beginning." Lyra could not sleep that night. The memory of the humans inside the steam house stayed in her mind, their laughter, their calm faces, their strange comfort in something that nearly killed her. She kept asking herself the same question again and again. How do they survive it? Her people had always told stories about humans. They said humans were reckless, unstable, and too fond of danger. But no story ever mentioned that they willingly walked into burning heat. It was as if she had witnessed a secret ritual, something sacred and hidden. The next morning, she returned to the human settlement. She told herself she was only watching for research, But deep down she knew it was more than that. Something inside her wanted to understand. Something inside her wanted to see the tall man again, the one called Daniel, from the shadows of the trees. She watched the humans carry buckets of water and wood toward the sauna. She tilted her head, confused. They seemed excited. Almost like preparing for a festival. Children ran around laughing, elders walked calmly, and no one looked afraid of what was waiting inside. Her heart raced as she remembered the burning pain she felt. The steam on her skin had nearly broken her, and yet, these fragile creatures returned again and again. It was not weakness, it was choice. As the door opened and the cloud of heat spread out, Lyra held her breath. She could not step inside again. Not yet, but she leaned closer, trying to hear their voices. Through the thick wooden walls, she caught bits of laughter and words she could not understand fully. Then she saw him. Daniel walked out for a moment, his body steaming, his skin red, but his smile calm. He poured cold water on himself and sighed with relief. For a second their eyes met. Lyra froze. She thought he would shout or call the others, but instead he simply raised a hand in greeting. A small smile touched his lips, as if he had expected her to return. Her cheeks warmed in a way she did not understand. She turned quickly, disappearing into the trees. But her heart kept beating fast. She was not supposed to feel this way. He was human, an outsider, a danger to her people's laws. Still, she came back the next day. This time Daniel was waiting. He did not chase her, did not try to trap her. Instead, he sat outside the sauna on a wooden bench, as if inviting her to come closer. "You're curious, aren't you?" he said softly, his voice carrying across the clearing. Lyra stiffened, unsure if she should answer. Daniel continued, "It's not dangerous for us. It helps us grow stronger. It cleans the body and the mind." She stepped forward slowly, unable to resist. "Why do you enjoy suffering?" she asked at last, her voice trembling. Daniel chuckled, shaking his head. "It's not suffering, it's a choice. Sometimes we go through discomfort because it makes us better afterward." His words echoed in her mind like a riddle. For her people, avoiding pain was survival, but for humans, seeking pain seemed to be a path to strength. She struggled to understand. Yet she also felt something new: admiration. Over the next few days, Lyra returned again and again. She watched them, listened to Daniel's gentle explanations. He spoke about traditions, about how his ancestors had sat in steam rooms for hundreds of years. He said it was a way of cleansing, of bonding, of finding peace. She began to write secret notes in her small tablet. "Humans use heat as healing," she recorded. "They willingly face what we fear." Her hands trembled as she wrote, realizing she was breaking every law of her people. But still, she could not stop. Every time she saw them laugh in the rising steam, every time she saw Daniel's calm face, her curiosity grew deeper. She wanted to try again. She wanted to know if she too could endure the fire. One evening, as the sun set behind the hills, she whispered to herself, "If I can survive what they love, maybe I can understand them. Maybe I can understand him." Her eyes glowed with determination. The fear was still there, but curiosity had become stronger than fear, and so Lyra made her choice. The next time Daniel entered the sauna, she would follow. She would step into the heat again, not as a mistake but as a test of her courage, a test of her will, because deep inside, she knew this was not just about saunas anymore. It was about discovering why humans were different, why they thrived where others would fall, and why one human, in particular, had already begun to change her heart. Lyra returned to the sauna the next day. Her heart was restless, her mind filled with questions she could not answer. Daniel was already there, sitting on the wooden bench outside, waiting with the same calm smile. It felt strange, almost dangerous. How easily she was drawn to him. "You came back," Daniel said softly, his voice calm like flowing water. Lyra crossed her arms, pretending she was not nervous. "I came to observe," she answered, though inside she knew it was more than that. Her people would call it weakness, but her curiosity was stronger than fear. Daniel nodded, as if he understood without needing more words. "Then observe closely," he said, opening the door to the sauna. The thick wave of heat rolled out, pressing against her skin. Her body shivered at the memory of pain, but she forced herself to stand tall. This time, she stepped inside with him. The steam wrapped around her, making her lungs heavy. Daniel guided her to sit near the lower bench where the heat was weaker. He poured water over the glowing stones, and the hiss of steam filled the room. Lyra's heart raced, but she tried to focus on him. "How can you sit here so calmly?" she asked, her voice barely steady. Daniel leaned back, breathing slowly. "Because I trust the process. The heat cleans the body. It makes us stronger. It teaches us patience." She studied his face, the calmness in his eyes, the steady rhythm of his breath. It was as if he was in control of the fire itself. She wanted to understand that control, that strength. Her people only knew fear when it came to heat, but humans embraced it. Minutes passed, each second testing her limits. Her skin burned. Her lungs begged for cold air, but Daniel's steady presence kept her from running. When she felt she could not endure anymore, he poured cold water into her hands. "Drink," he said, his voice reassuring. The water cooled her throat, giving her just enough strength to continue. She realized then that he was not only guiding her through the sauna, but guiding her through something deeper. He was showing her a way to face fear, not by running, but by breathing through it. That thought made her chest tighten in a way she did not understand. After they stepped outside into the night air, Lyra collapsed on the bench, gasping. Her body trembled, but her eyes were shining. Daniel looked at her with concern. "You pushed yourself too far." But she shook her head, smiling weakly. "No, I pushed myself just enough." He studied her for a moment, then laughed softly. "You're stronger than you think," he said. The words hit her like an arrow. No one from her people had ever said that to her. No one had ever believed she could endure. In that moment, a bond was forming, fragile but undeniable. Lyra felt it. Though she tried to hide it, Daniel felt it too. Though he respected her silence, they were two different worlds. But the fire had brought them closer. Over the next days, their secret meetings continued. Sometimes she only sat outside, listening to him speak about human traditions. Other times, she dared to enter again, staying longer each time. Each visit was a new test, a new step into unknown territory. She began to share small details about herself. "My people live in shadows," she whispered one evening. "We fear the sun. We fear warmth. We believe heat is death." Daniel listened quietly, never judging. "And yet," he replied, "here you are, facing the very thing you fear most." His words lit something inside her. For the first time, she felt pride, not shame. She began to believe that maybe she was not so weak after all. But the bond was not just about heat. It was about trust. Every time Daniel caught her when she stumbled, every time he spoke gently, instead of mocking, she felt safer with him. It was dangerous, forbidden, but it was real. One night, as the stars filled the sky, she asked, "Why are you helping me?" Daniel paused, looking at her with calm eyes. "Because I see someone trying to be brave," he answered, "and no one should face fear alone." Lyra turned her face away, hiding the small smile she could not stop. She knew then that this bond was more than curiosity. It was something she had never felt before, something her people would never understand. But in her heart, she whispered, "This human, he sees me, even when my own kind does not." The night was quiet when Lyra finally decided to tell the truth. She and Daniel sat outside the sauna, the wooden walls still glowing faintly with heat. The stars above stretched across the sky like a silver river, and the air was heavy with silence. Daniel poured water into a cup and offered it to her, his eyes calm and patient. Lyra's hands trembled as she accepted it. For days, she had carried a secret inside her chest, a secret that weighed heavier with each passing moment. Her people had forbidden any contact with humans, Yet she had not only spoken to one. She had followed him, learned from him, trusted him, and now, something inside her whispered that trust demanded honesty. "My people. We are not like you," she began softly, her voice almost breaking. Daniel tilted his head, listening carefully, not interrupting. "We fear heat, we fear the sun. Even a small rise in warmth weakens us. Steam can kill us in minutes." Her throat tightened as she remembered the first time she stepped inside the sauna. The way her lungs had burned like fire. Daniel's brows furrowed, his expression shifting to concern. "And yet you came back, again and again," he said gently. She nodded, tears threatening to fall. "I came back because I needed to understand, because I saw you survive what should have destroyed you." Her words spilled out like water from a broken vessel. "For us, heat is death, but for you it is life. You call it healing, you call it strength. I do not understand, and it frightens me." Her voice cracked on the last word, and she lowered her head, ashamed of admitting weakness. Daniel leaned forward, his voice steady. "There is no shame in fear. Fear only shows us what we must overcome." Lyra lifted her eyes slowly, meeting his gaze. She saw no judgment there, only kindness. "You think your people are weak because of this," he continued. "But maybe it is not weakness, maybe it is simply difference. Sometimes what one fears most becomes the very thing that teaches them strength." The words struck deep, echoing inside her heart. No one from her world had ever spoken to her like this. No one had ever seen her as anything but fragile. She looked at her trembling hands, then whispered, "When I stepped into the steam, I thought I would die. But when you caught me, I realized I wanted to try again, not because I believed I could survive, but because I wanted to believe I was more than fear." The confession left her breathless, as if she had given away a piece of her soul. Daniel smiled gently. "And you did try again. You sat longer, you breathed through it. You proved yourself already, Lyra. You are stronger than you realize." Hearing her name in his voice sent warmth through her chest. A warmth that was different from the burning of steam. It was softer, calmer, something she had never felt before. For the first time in her life, she did not feel ashamed of her weakness. She felt seen, accepted, and even respected. And in that acceptance, something fragile but powerful began to grow. A bond stronger than fear, yet deep inside, she knew the danger. If her people discovered she had shared this truth with a human, they would call her a traitor. Her kind believed survival depended on silence and separation. But here she was, sitting beside a human who turned her fear into courage. The silence stretched again, but this time it felt different. The night was no longer heavy, it was calm. The bond between them had shifted. It was no longer just curiosity, it was trust. Daniel broke the silence softly. "Sometimes, the things we fear most are not here to destroy us, but to change us." Lyra's eyes widened at his words. For the first time, she wondered if her people had been wrong all along. She turned her gaze to the sauna, the place she had once seen as a chamber of death. Now it looked different, not safe, not easy, but no longer impossible. She whispered to herself, "Maybe heat is not only an enemy, maybe it is a teacher." Daniel glanced at her, hearing the change in her voice, and smiled, and in that moment, Lyra realized something even more frightening than steam. She was beginning to trust a human with her heart. It was a revelation that filled her with both hope and dread, because weakness, once confessed, often became the beginning of strength. For many nights, Lyra had kept her secret hidden. She visited Daniel in silence, learned from him, and endured the steam that once nearly killed her. But secrets have a way of finding light, and soon, her people began to notice her absences. Whispers spread in the dark caves of her colony, whispers that carried suspicion and anger. One evening, as Lyra returned from the human settlement, she was met by two elders at the entrance of the caves. Their faces were stern, their eyes cold. "You have been seen near the human dwellings," one of them said, his voice sharp like a blade. Lyra froze, her heart pounding. "I was only observing," she tried to explain. But they did not believe her. "Observing is forbidden," the elders snapped. "You risk exposing us, you risk our survival." His words echoed through the stone halls, heavy with accusation. The news spread quickly. Her people gathered, demanding answers. Some looked at her with fear, others with disgust. To them, humans were reckless fire dwellers, dangerous and uncontrollable. That night, the Council of Elders summoned her. The chamber was filled with shadows, the air heavy with judgment. "You crossed the line," the eldest one declared, his voice trembling with anger. "You walked with them, you entered their fire chamber. Do you seek to betray us?" Lyra's chest tightened, but she lifted her head bravely. "I did not betray you," she said, her voice steady despite her fear. "I only sought to learn. I saw strength in them. I saw something we have never understood." But her words were met with silence, then scornful laughter. "Strength?" One elder sneered. "You call madness strength? They burn themselves alive for amusement, and you wish to bring their corruption here?" Lyra clenched her fists, her heart torn between loyalty and truth. "They are not weak, they endure what would destroy us. Perhaps there is something we can learn," she argued. But the council roared with anger, calling her naive, calling her reckless. Her punishment was swift. "You will not return to the humans," the council declared. "If you defy this command, you will no longer be one of us." The words struck like thunder. Exile, that was the price of disobedience. That night, Lyra sat alone in the darkness of her chamber. Her mind spun with confusion, her chest heavy with sorrow. She had always wanted to belong to her people, but now, for the first time, she felt like a stranger among them, and yet, she could not stop thinking of Daniel. The next day, despite the council's command, she found herself walking back to the sauna. Her steps were heavy, her heart torn, but her will was stronger. When Daniel saw her, he immediately sensed the change in her eyes. "What happened?" he asked gently. "My people know," she whispered, her voice breaking. "They forbid me from seeing you. They think humans are dangerous. They think you are a threat." Daniel's expression darkened, but he did not look surprised. "Fear builds walls," he said quietly, "and walls are harder to break than stone." Lyra sat beside him, her hands trembling. "I don't know what to do. If I return, I lose myself. If I stay, I lose them." Her words carried the weight of two worlds. Daniel looked at her for a long moment, then spoke with calm certainty. "Sometimes choosing truth means losing comfort. Sometimes it means walking a harder path," he said. His words were gentle, but they cut deep. Lyra realized she stood at a crossroads, one road leading to safety but silence, the other to danger but truth. And in her heart, she already knew which road she would take. As the night grew colder, she whispered, "My people fear the fire. But I cannot fear it anymore, not after what I have seen." Daniel placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You don't walk alone," he said firmly. In that moment, Lyra understood that the conflict was no longer just between her and her people. It was between two worlds, two ways of living, two definitions of strength, and she was caught in the center, the fragile bridge between them. The fire that once threatened to destroy her had now ignited something far greater: revolution. The conflict between the two worlds grew sharper. With each passing day, humans and Lyra's people lived close, yet they were divided by fear and mistrust. The Council of Elders had forbidden all contact, but something unexpected forced them to reconsider. A strange sickness spread among the alien people, a freezing illness that turned their blood cold and their limbs stiff. No healer could stop it, no medicine could cure it. Victims shivered endlessly, their skin turning pale as ice, until their strength was gone. Lyra watched in horror as families wept in silence. Her people had always feared heat, but now, the lack of warmth was killing them. The council grew desperate. They called meetings, argued in circles, but found no answers. Finally, one of the younger scouts whispered a dangerous idea. "The humans use heat for healing, perhaps. Perhaps it could cure us." The chamber fell silent at those words. The elders recoiled, their pride refusing to accept such a suggestion. But the sickness spread quickly, and desperation left them with no choice. They turned to Lyra, the one who had already walked with the humans. "You risked our survival before," an elder said coldly. "Now prove that your madness has value. If their fire truly heals, you will be the first to face it. If you survive, we will listen. If you fail, the blame is yours." The judgment was clear. It was both punishment and trial. Lyra's heart pounded, fear clawing at her chest, but she knew she could not refuse. That night, she went to Daniel, her steps heavy with dread. He listened carefully as she explained the sickness, the council's command, the trial she must face. Daniel's face hardened with concern, but his eyes carried no hesitation. "You don't have to do this alone," he said firmly. "I'll be there. I'll guide you through it." The next day, the council gathered near the human sauna. For the first time, the two worlds stood in one place, watching each other with suspicion and fear. The aliens huddled in cloaks, their eyes wide, while the humans prepared the sauna with solemn focus. Lyra stood at the center, trembling but unyielding. Daniel opened the door, the wave of steam rolling out like a living beast. Lyra's breath caught in her throat. Her body screamed to run, but she stepped forward, each step a war against instinct. Her people gasped, whispering that she was walking into death. Inside, the steam wrapped around her, hotter than she remembered, heavier than before. Her lungs burned, her vision blurred. Every nerve in her body begged her to stop, but Daniel's voice broke through the storm. "Calm and steady. Breathe with me, slow and steady. Trust the process." She focused on his voice, on the rhythm of his breathing. Her heart thundered, but she matched his pace. Her skin dripped with sweat, her muscles trembled. Yet something inside her refused to break. For the first time, she did not see the heat as her enemy. She saw it as a test. Minutes stretched into eternity. Her mind screamed, her body begged for escape, but her spirit held strong. When she felt she would collapse, Daniel poured cool water into her hands, guiding her through the pain. "Just a little longer," he whispered. "You're stronger than you know." Finally, the door opened, and Lyra stumbled out into the cold night air. She fell to her knees, gasping, her body steaming, her skin glowing red. Her people cried out in shock, some expecting her to fall lifeless. But instead, she lifted her head, her eyes burning with determination. "I survived," she whispered, her voice trembling but fierce. Her people stared in disbelief. The sickness that had weakened her before seemed to lift, her body no longer shivering, her strength returning. The impossible had happened. She had endured the fire, and it had not destroyed her. Daniel stood beside her, his presence calm and proud. Her people whispered among themselves, fear turning slowly into wonder. Perhaps the human's fire was not madness, perhaps it was salvation. The council could no longer deny what stood before them. That night, Lyra realized the truth. Her trial was never just about her survival. It was about proving that two worlds could share strength instead of fear. And though the battle was far from over, the first crack had appeared in the wall between them. As she looked at Daniel, she whispered to herself, "The fire that once threatened to kill me has become the fire that may save us all." The night after the trial, the air around the settlement felt different. Where there had once been silence and suspicion, now there was murmuring, cautious hope. Lyra's people had seen her walk through fire and live. They had seen her return from the steam stronger instead of weaker. For generations they had feared heat, but now their greatest fear looked like their only cure. The council gathered again, their faces pale and uncertain. The sickness had already claimed many, and more were falling each day. But Lyra stood before them, her body still steaming faintly from her trial, her eyes fierce. "You saw it with your own eyes," she said firmly. "The heat that kills us can also heal us. The humans can help us survive." The elders shifted uneasily, pride battling against truth. One of them finally spoke, his voice rough. "If what you say is true, Then we must test it further. More of our people must face the fire. Lyra's heart raced. This was not rejection. This was the first step toward change. Daniel prepared the sauna again. This time not for one alien, but for many. The humans worked side by side, carrying water, preparing stones, guiding the fearful aliens with patience. Some trembled as they entered, whispering prayers. Others nearly collapsed but found strength in Daniel's steady voice and Lyra's presence beside them. One by one, they emerged, not broken, but renewed. Their shivering stopped, their eyes brighter, their strength returning. The impossible was happening before everyone's eyes. Heat was no longer only death, it was life. Lyra's people began to murmur a new word, whispered in awe: change. They realized the old laws of fear had blinded them. The fire was never their enemy, it was their teacher. But not everyone was ready to accept this shocking truth. Some elders clung to the old ways, their voices sharp with anger. You risk our traditions, you risk our identity. If we embrace them, we will lose who we are, they cried. Yet even their voices shook, because deep inside, they knew the truth was stronger than their pride. Lyra stood tall, her voice rising above the chaos. We will not lose ourselves. We will become more. The fire does not erase us, it changes us, it makes us stronger. And the humans are not our enemies. They are the key to our survival. Her words echoed across the gathering. Her people listened, torn between fear and hope. Daniel stepped forward, his presence calm. We never came to harm you, we never wished to take from you. But if you let us, we can share what we know, together. We can endure what neither of us could endure alone. His words carried weight, not of force, but of truth, and slowly the walls of mistrust began to crack. That night, for the first time, humans and aliens sat together outside the sauna. Steam rose into the sky like a bridge between two worlds. Children from both sides played near the fire, laughter echoing where once there had only been silence. The old fear had not vanished, but it no longer ruled them. Lyra looked at Daniel, her heart pounding with a mix of relief and wonder. She had begun this journey searching for answers, but she had found something far greater. Not only the strength to face her fear, but the courage to change her people's destiny. The fire that once threatened to destroy her had become the fire that united two worlds. She whispered softly, almost to herself, the truth was never that we were weak. The truth was that we were afraid. And now we know fear is not the end, it is the beginning. Daniel heard her words and smiled. And in that moment, the future felt different, bright, and filled with possibility. The shocking truth was clear. The human's strange love for steam and heat had unlocked a strength her people never knew they possessed. And from that moment forward, the sauna was no longer just a human ritual. It was the symbol of unity, the place where two worlds had found common ground.